Good evening. I'll call this regular Township Council meeting of August 16th to order. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on December 22nd, 2021, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record on December 28th, 2021, and the Newark Star Ledger on December 27th, 2021. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Public Access Channel 21 at 7 p.m. Sundays and Wednesdays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net. Would you all join us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All the servicemen that died during the Taliban withdrawals.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Karifi?
Here.
Ms. Grignani?
Here.
Mr. Musella?
Here.
Mr. Neglia?
Here.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Also in attendance are Business Administrator Fred Carr, Mayor Jamie Barbario, CFO Juan Uribe, Township Attorney Michael Lavery, and Township Clerk Colette Madden. Council President, we have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, September 6th, 2022 at 7 p.m., agenda meeting, and September 20th, 2022, 7 p.m., our regular meeting. Approval of minutes,
Agenda meeting 7/5/22, regular meeting 7/19/22. Motion to approve the minutes above by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
And Mr. DePiero?
yes.
Motion passes.
Presentations and reports, Mayor, you're up.
I just have one thing to report tonight with regards to our lead copper rule that the state imposed on the township. Actually, the federal government did with regards to all lead pipes are to be removed on all township, not just township property and residential. And from what I understand, I spoke to John Maworka, the Director of Water Department. There really aren't any lead pipes in Parsippany, but then the state extended it to galvanized pipes. And the issue is that the majority of houses in Mount Tabor are galvanized pipes. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to speak to the president of the CMA in Mount Tabor to discuss having a town hall with Mount Tabor residents and what direction the township is going to have to take, because with regards to the galvanized pipes, as you know, when you enter, we can't enter private property, and the onus becomes on the residents to replace the piping. So I've been meeting with the township business administrator, myself, Juan, and township attorney to see how we're going to address this going forward. They're estimating the cost to the township, if I'm wrong, Fred, let me know, about $4.5 million just to replace all the galvanized pipes that are on public property. But we need to decide what we're going to do for the residents in Mount Tabor, because that's a big, that's a chunk of money that, I don't know if any resident can truly afford it. So I'm going to set up that meeting with the president of the CMA and have as many members of the residents of Mount Tabor come to ask any questions they want.
Okay. I'd like to attend that meeting. Let me know when you have it.
I will.
Township Council, anybody? I have two items. One is the street dedication for Lee Keimel.
I reached out to the, to the township engineer with regards to that, where we would put the sign, and I'm assuming it would be going into the Rescue and Recovery Building.
The exit.
Yeah.
The
Or the
entrance-
exit. Oh, no, we can't do it going in because there's
The
another one.
entrance has a
Right.
deck and back,
The exit coming back.
the
You're
exit
right.
coming out.
Okay, I'll have that answer for you this week.
Okay, thank you. And the other item I have is the state extended outdoor dining for all of the restaurants. It's an option for the towns. Now, many or all of these restaurants suffered for 2.5 years of the pandemic. And I would like the Parsippany Township to extend outdoor dining the way we had it also. So our restaurants don't suffer more than other towns.
Well,
Jen Veely recommended against it.
well, it's not so much. I think it's not that they're against it. The fact is that when you start taking certain, I'll just say restaurants, where they have parking and that they're using the parking for the outdoor dining, that becomes an issue because it brings it onto the public streets as well. But we can work around that. I will speak to the zoning director and planning and zoning.
So maybe we modify the ordinance a little bit.
I think that's what we would have to do because,
Can we do it quickly so these restaurants don't continue to suffer?
sure.
Thank you. And now we have a presentation from our library. And I believe we have Melissa Kuzma
Yes, good evening.
and Ellen Wellman and Herb Levine.
Yes.
You can all come up, or it's up to you. Only one speaker?
Yeah, just me.
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me here tonight. I'm Melissa Kuzma, the director of the Parsippany Troy Hills Library. And I'm here this evening because a decision must be made about the future of the Lake Hiawatha Library. And I do have a handout that you should all have copies of, and I have some extra copies with Herb Levine here in the front row if anyone else in the audience would like one. So on page 2, we start with a timeline that covers the history of the Lake Hiawatha building. We have been unable to verify the year the existing Lake Hiawatha Library was constructed or what purpose it originally served, but we know the building was converted for use as a branch library in 1968, 54 years ago. In 1994, nearly 30 years ago, a $300,000 minor renovation was completed. Records show that the budget was insufficient to address facility maintenance and programmatic improvements identified at the time. Since 1994, the town and library trustees have identified that the Lake Hiawatha Library facility requires further improvements. Funding shortfalls and unrealistic budget constraints have plagued multiple plans for improvement, and maintenance has continued to be deferred. So much has changed since 1994, and the rapid pace of technological development has had a significant impact on how libraries deliver services to the community. The New Jersey State Library, in conjunction with the state legislature, has offered construction grants on a 20-year cycle. Grant funding was available in 2000, 2020, and will likely not be available again for another 20 years. In 2010, 2015, and 2018, library trustees commissioned studies which all recommended major improvements to the Lake Hiawatha Library. In 2020, the town and trustees agreed that the existing building was no longer worth saving and that a new building should be constructed. Town council approved $3 million in matching support, and the state library awarded the town and library a $3 million construction bond grant for a new $6 million library. However, we all know what also happened in 2020, and as a result, unprecedented cost escalation and pandemic supply chain issues have left us with a funding shortfall for the proposed new library building. On page 3, you'll see the milestones of our Lake Hiawatha project so far. In May 2020, as I said, the town and library submitted an application to the state library for a construction bond grant for which the town would match funding. In November 2020, grant winners were announced, and in March 2021, the grant was officially awarded to the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills and the library. We got to work immediately with our architects and completed design development. However, in October 2021, we received an independent cost estimate, which found the project as designed was now $3 million over budget. In January 2022, after several discussions, we were informed by the state librarian who oversees the grants that we could reduce the scope of the building by less than 10% and still be allowed to use grant funding for our project. So in the next page, to summarize the current situation, the first thing we did when we realized the project was over budget was to begin value engineering to see if we could reduce the scope of the project by just under 10% and reduce costs. Again, the grant we received from the state is a once-in-20-year opportunity, and our existing building will not last 20 years without a major renovation. The existing building does not currently meet the needs of the community, and all of the grant money available from the state has been distributed to other libraries, so there's no opportunity for additional funding there. And inflation and other market conditions have driven prices up dramatically. So in the next page, we show how we reduced the scope of the project. So the original plan was to build a 15,000 square foot 21st century library. It would have been 66% larger than the existing building, and would have been built across the street on what is now a municipal parking lot, so that the library would be able to remain open during construction. The old building would then have been demolished and a new parking lot would be built in its place. So the new proposed plan is a building just over 13,500 square feet, which is still 50% larger, than the existing building. It will now be built on the existing site, meaning the current library building will need to be demolished and the library will be closed during construction. However, this plan is still $1.5 million over our original $6 million budget. So what are our options? We have two. Option A, retain the $3 million grant from the state and increase the town's contribution by $1.5 million. Or option B, forfeit the $3 million state grant and use $2 million of township funding already committed to renovate the existing building. So on the next page, we show the pros and cons of option A, where we retain the grant money and increase funding. The pros are that the town will have a brand-new 13,000 plus square foot 21st century library, which is 50% larger than the existing building and will meet all life safety codes. We will not be giving back free money from the state. We will get the benefit of reduced energy costs due to high efficiency heating, air conditioning, and lighting. And we'll finally have the welcoming and modern space that the Lake Hiawatha community needs, including dedicated spaces for children and teens, expanded meeting areas for members of the community to gather, and enhanced programming space outfitted with the latest technology. The only con is that additional funding is needed. So you've heard me mention 21st century library several times. So what do I mean by that? In 2018, before applying for the construction bond grant, the library conducted focus groups with the Lake Hiawatha community to find out what they wanted from their library. Here's what they said. Wi-Fi, lots of outlets, dedicated teen space, study rooms and quiet study space, conference rooms, community room with AV setup, spaces for children's and adult programs and education, a makerspace, lounge areas, technology training, public computers and laptop lending, job search help, and a bigger library to meet the needs of a growing community. A 21st century library is not just a place to get books. It's so much more. It's a place to host a meeting, take a class, use a computer, borrow things you might not have at home, not just books, but a sewing machine, a laptop, games for kids to learn coding or robotics, a pass to a museum, or even seeds to plant in your garden. It's a place to gather with other community members or just hang out. Maybe you watched the segment from CBS Sunday Morning that I sent last week. I hope you did, and if you didn't, I hope you will, because it shows wonderful examples of 21st century libraries that communities all over the country are investing in. So on the next page, we show option B, which is to forfeit the $3 million grant and redirect township funds to a renovation of the existing building. The only pro to this option is the short-term savings of $1 million. The cons are we would be missing out on once-in-a-generation opportunity to have a significant funding source to offset municipal investment. We would still have a 60-year-old building that is undersized to serve the community. We would still have a building that has life safety code deficiencies, as well as inefficient systems that cost more to operate and have increased life cycle costs. We will be unable to provide the 21st century library services wanted and needed by our community. And we pay twice, once now to fix up the old building and later to eventually replace it. So in 2016, the Board of Trustees commissioned an extensive architectural and engineering assessment in which numerous deficiencies were found. On page 11 is a list of the building code and life safety issues in the current building. They include Missing 1-hour areas of refuge in several locations. Restrooms are not ADA compliant. An updated fire alarm system is required. The ceiling height of the lower level and mezzanine, 7 feet 4 inches, does not meet current code. The accessible entrance ramp to the building is too narrow and has no landing and must be rebuilt. The building needs to be tested for asbestos. The underground oil tank should be removed. So note that the code improvements will further reduce the space available for public use. And on the next page, in addition, multiple heating and cooling, electrical, and plumbing upgrades are needed. Telecommunications and AV systems should be upgraded and wireless access points installed. Existing lighting is not energy efficient. A security system should be installed. A fire sprinkler system should be installed to meet code. We also have significant deferred maintenance from the last several years, including children's room AC requires replacement. It has not worked in 10 years. Main level AC requires replacement. The roof needs to be replaced. The building needs to be painted inside and outside. The carpeting needs to be replaced. We need to upgrade our internet infrastructure. We need to install new AV systems. We need new furniture, and we need an updated phone system. So this is what we'd be facing if it's decided to turn down the state grant and try to renovate the existing building. And even with all of these fixes, the building is still 60 years old. It is still too small. It is still missing study and meeting room spaces, and it will still be missing many of the important elements of a 21st century library. In conclusion, public libraries are vibrant and vital community centers where all members of the community are welcome, and where people can come to learn, be entertained, to access technology, meet, gather, and collaborate. In 2019, over 100,000 people used the Lake Hiawatha Library. Since we reopened after COVID, our numbers are increasing every month. This community loves and uses its library, and they deserve a space that meets their needs in 2022 and beyond. We have to ask, would we be making the best decision for the community by passing up this opportunity? The wisest path to a long-term cost savings for the town is to build a new library with the help of $3 million from the state. We need to make good decisions that will set us up for the future of the Lake Hiawatha Library. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. We'll need time for the mayor, the administration, and council to digest this, and we'll have further discussions with the board and see where we arrive. Thank you for your presentation. A township attorney?
No report this evening, Council President.
Thank you. Business administrator? Township clerk?
The only thing I have, Council President, just for the public, is I have 2 copies of the budget that are on the table. If anybody that wants to view the budget, that is for our purposes. If anybody wants a copy of the budget, you're more than welcome to pick it up at the clerk's office tomorrow. Thank you, Council President.
Okay. Township offices and committee reports.
Council President, please.
Mrs. Graniani.
We have 2 ribbon cuttings. One will be Physio-Pros, excuse me, not Psycho, Physio-Pros Performance Rehab. That will be on Saturday, August the 20th at 10 o'clock. The address is 3799 Route 46, Suite 110. And then Electric Town, Saturday, August the 20th at 11 o'clock at 34 North Bevwick Road. That is another ribbon cutting ceremony. Then we will have an anniversary celebration for Sal's Hair Cutting Salon, 10 a.m. Saturday, September the 10th, 114 North Bevwick Road. That's all, Mr. President.
Thank you. Engineering report?
Green Bank Road Safety and Improvements Project. The project is complete, except for the guardrail replacement. Underground utilities could not be moved, but we have received approval from the NJDEP to adjust the stream bed to allow more space for the new guardrail installation. Work will begin in the next few months once materials become available. No council action required. 2021 Road Resurfacing Curb and Sidewalk Program. The annual road resurfacing curb and sidewalk project is on hold pending negotiations with the contractor. No council action required. Pudding Stone Heights Road Improvement Project Phase 1, construction on the Pudding Stone Heights Improvement Project is substantially complete. We anticipate all remaining punch list items to be completed in the next several weeks. No council action required. Rockaway River flood wall and levee inspection. An inspection was conducted of the Rockaway River flood wall and levee system. The report indicated the system is in good shape and recommended several maintenance and repair items that should be addressed. We are presently working with our consultant on preparing design details and a cost estimate for the repair work. All vegetation within 5 feet of the wall and toe of the slope is being cleared in accordance with our inspection requirements. No council action required. Traffic signal maintenance for Littleton Road and Rita Drive, Beechwood Road, and the Jefferson Road and Smith Road intersections. This project is for improvements and maintenance to the traffic signals located at the Littleton Road and Rita Drive, Beechwood Road intersection, and the Jefferson Road and Smith Road intersection. The improvements include the replacement of various signal detection and controller equipment that have failed. Work will begin once equipment is available. No council action required. 2022 road resurfacing curb and sidewalk program. The 2022 road resurfacing curb and sidewalk project has been awarded and construction will begin by the beginning of August. No council action required. Mount Tabor Street Improvements Phase 7. The Mount Tabor Street Improvements Phase 7 project is in design. We anticipate bidding this project next month. No council action required. Lake Intervale Area Street Improvements. The first phase of the Lake Intervale Area Street Improvements project is in design. We anticipate bidding this project next month. No council action required. Roadway design projects. The following projects are in design or proposals have been requested. Drumlin Drive stream cleaning, Jefferson Road drainage improvements, North Beverick Road streetscape improvements, Troy Brook stream cleaning, Sylvan Way sidewalk improvements, river and stream desnagging plans and permits, Etten Road traffic study. No council action required. Major soil permit, Valentin Greens, Block 181, Lot 19. The planning board has recommended approval of the major soil moving permit in conjunction with the site plan application for the proposed development located at 1500, Littleton Road. This office has reviewed the application and recommends the Township Council approve the permit. We recommend the Township Council approve the permit by resolution.
Okay, thank you. Bids taken, 8422, 2023 or newer Freightliner S2C medium-duty bus or equivalent with ambulatory seats. Item 2, 81622, well 1A replacement. Item B, bids to be taken, 81722, one new TrackMan 4 golf simulator or approved equivalent for the Knoll West Country Club. Now I'll entertain a motion to open to the public on any matter whatsoever.
Second. Make a motion.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by
Second.
Mr. Neglia. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia. Mr. DePiero.
Yes,
The floor is open on any matter. The only thing I would advise the public, if you are going to make comments pertaining to the budget, just be aware that we have a budget section and a public hearing on that matter where you'll be able to make comments for that as well.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Cezak. I live at 115 Redgate West, and I've lived there for 26 and a half years. I do want to say, full disclosure, I'm a retired librarian, full disclosure, and working as a library consultant now. But I just want you to think seriously about the proposal for the library. I've lived in this town for 25 and a half years. I do not have children, but I happily pay towards the education budget. And if people say, for example, that they don't use the library or they order their own books or they have a computer at home, we do this for the benefit of the whole community, to increase the quality of life in the community. And I think that Melissa did an excellent job explaining what the needs of the library are and weighing the value of expending more money versus giving $3 million back. I'm proud to live in a library, in a town with a really good library. Quite frankly, it helped me make my decision where I bought a house. I moved from Passaic County. And I was the director of the Patterson Public Library, so I knew challenges. So I just want to encourage you to think hard about this, to talk to the board and to Melissa further if you need to, and to please find a way to improve our Lake Hiawatha Village Library. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Peggy Smith, 16 Wildwood Trail. To be completely transparent, I'm also president right now of the Friends of Parsippany Library. So I guess all of you know that I value libraries and the services that our library have for our community. I guess all of you probably value our library very much too, and that you'd be very happy if you could to easily fund, the new library in Lake Hiawatha. I had written down a few comments, but I'm going to abbreviate them. I wanted you to think about 3 things when you're deliberating whether you can give funds for this project. And I think the first 2 Melissa covered very, very well. The first was that it's needed. There's nothing I could say except to tell you about all my own experiences in both libraries, which would take all night, that could convince you that the library is very needed. It's well used. You know all that. The second, beside being needed, is the decision is very practical. No one, again, could listen to what she said and I think want to turn down grant funds. I think many of you, all of you, are very careful with our tax dollars by necessity. And I think some of you ran on anti-tax platforms. You don't want to raise taxes in any way or take on more burdens for the community. But I really think that if people in the town, on both sides of town, understood the full situation, they would want this building. And the third point that I wanted to make, building this library is really the fair thing to do. I've lived in Parsippany over 40 years, and I've been involved and president of several community organizations. And from that work, I've always been aware that all the town administrators, right across the board, want to keep services the same as much as possible throughout the town. It's obviously a town of many neighborhoods and many different needs. I remember working with PTAs years ago, and Board of Ed always said that they oversaw all donations that PTAs made to each school because they didn't want it to become unbalanced. Frank, I bet you've spent a lot of time with our athletic fields making sure that throughout the town they're available and safe for all the children. Lake Hiawatha Library might not be unsafe, but I think there comes a time when facilities are so old and so antiquated that they can't do what they're meant to do. And that's putting all those kids on that side of town and the adults really at a disadvantage because that's the library they want to use. So when you're thinking, think needed, practical, and safe. And if anybody wants to hear my stories or know more, the Friends of the Library has a website, and you can reach me at the email that's there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Nicholas Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. A brief thing on the library, I would say, do they really need the latest up-to-date technology? They might be able to save money on that. And new furniture? So maybe, they can cut back on those 2 items alone. I have some pictures here from the desnagging operation that took place down by the Rockaway River without permits. Now, the resolution that supposedly carried it through is dated March 2016, and it's R 201-6083. I'd like to know, is there another updated resolution that carried that work through for that, for the so-called desnagging? And it was obvious that the permits weren't, which I mentioned before, because they violated the April 1st to November 15th for the bats, Parsippany's within 10 miles of the hyperbarium, or the migratory birds, which is April the 1st to 8/31. There's a map that I was given by an NJDEP official. Parsippany's boundary is on the other side of the wall, the dike. From the middle of the river over where the work was done belongs to Montville. So the only thing I haven't done is I haven't asked Montville, are we paying for the work that Montville should be doing? And like I said, the work has to be done. This is a wetland, a riparian zone. It needs to be done in the right time course. You can't just hire anybody for the cheapest price and they do the work whenever they feel like. So I'd like to, if you could answer those questions, but it's just not a good thing for Parsippany to be inconsiderate to the sensitive areas that they do have. You can't just be an environmentalist, you have to be an ecologist. And I'll save the rest for the budget, but I would like, if there is an updated resolution, and is Montville supposed to be doing this work? And the thing too, oh yeah, and the other question is, why were these trees taken? I don't understand why the snagging has to be tree removal. So, I forwarded Council President Mike DiPiero an email, but I just trying to keep you up to date on it, but I never got a response or anything,
Yeah,
but,
I need to forward that to the administration.
all right. And we do have some work I see here for the Troy Brook, and a couple of places coming up says the snagging, so I hope, the same thing doesn't happen here, that they're following the rules. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nick, I'd just like to make a comment to reference to what you said about the library. With all due respect, why would we build a new library and then put old technology in it that would need to be replaced like immediately, and old furniture and stuff? That wouldn't make sense at all.
It's not actually old if you can still use it, and it's applicable. You could use it for the same purpose, but you just don't fall for, we gotta have the
I
latest.
understand, but I mean, we want to make, if we're going to build a new library, we want it to be,
We wanna save money too, right?
well, of course, but I
That's,
don't want to build a new library and then put, old stuff in there.
it will still be a new library, except the technology will be efficient and will carry out the purpose. It just won't be as expensive. And you may not need the new, if you could accomplish the same purpose with one computer simply because it's the latest and the greatest, you have to, and the furniture thing, that's, I won't say anything about that, but
No, I'm just giving you
All
an
right,
opinion.
if you know what I mean, I think you know what I mean about furniture.
Yeah, I got you.
All right,
I
okay.
I don't want to go back and forth with you. To me, that doesn't make any sense. If we're going to build a new library, we're going to put new stuff in it.
But,
All right.
all right, my
We can't go back-
contention it will be a new library, but to save money.
Okay.
All
I
right.
got you.
Hi. Herb Levine, 4 Woodstone Road. I'm currently a library trustee and have been for the past 25 years or so. I'm also a former school personnel in Parsippany for over 30 years, retired. I'm also was retired from that position, but I'm also have been heavily involved for the last 25 years with juvenile offenders as part of the Juvenile Conference Committee in Parsippany. But as a library trustee, I come to you not because the old library is falling apart, but to tell you a new library will give new interests and phases to the children in this community. And if we're talking about improving education, that's where it begins. It begins there. We do a lot of work directly with the schools. Children come to us directly from the schools for more and better education. So we're not just talking about another building, and we're not talking about a building that doesn't have any meaning. I'm a 50-plus resident in this town. I've watched the educational process and was involved with it for 30 years in this town. And I knew what the library and the role that the library played all of those years when my own children were in school. So I'm making a plea for you tonight to make serious consideration about this library, because it will mean a great deal to the education of the children in Parsippany.
Thank you, Herb. Anyone else to speak?
Hi, I'm Suzanne McLaughlin. I live right across the street from the library, 81 Nokomis Avenue. I moved in there in 2017 with two small children. I have a 7 and a 10-year-old, and they still call our home the library house. A big portion of why we chose this house was because we were walking distance to not only a library, but a library in a very walkable community. And since I have lived right across the street, I get a front row view of people going in there, and every single day, as the previous presenter said, I see children walking in there. My own children were over the moon to sign up for their first library cards. They were thrilled to pieces, and we go over there quite often. The only objection I had to the improvement of this library was the fact that it was going to be right next to my house, because my bedroom is right next to the parking lot, and I didn't want a new construction. But if the plan now is to improve the one that is there, I want to put my full-throated and thought-out support behind that. I know that when I was growing up, not around here, sadly, but I grew up, and a big part of my childhood was the library. I remember going to programs when I was a little girl. When I was older and I was in high school, I used my library constantly for especially my English classes, going there to find everything from literary critiques to finding, I don't know what you call them, but those books of quotes that are sorted by subject. And it directly contributed to my education, having one there. And especially hearing about improved Wi-Fi. I know, as I am an educator, not in the town, I teach over at Caldwell, I know that one of the biggest benefits to having a public library is having increased technology and having Wi-Fi, especially since we did just go through COVID, and we're still going through it. And the biggest problem that I had as an educator was getting my students on camera and getting them able to communicate with me. So hearing about laptop loans and hearing about Wi-Fi, I know that there's a possibility for loaning out hotspots, for instance, would absolutely be a benefit to the community. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say I really encourage you to go with the $3 million and improve the building that we have. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, seeing no one come forward, entertain a motion to close.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Second reading and public hearing. Ordinance 2022:21. Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank for calendar year 2022 pursuant to NJSA 40A:4-45.14. The notice for ordinance 2022:21 was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on July 19th, 2022, and introduced at the July 19th, 2022 regular meeting. Motion to accept ordinance 2022-21 be heard in its second and final reading by title only by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 2022:21 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call. Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Okay, the floor is open, only for the public hearing for the budget.
Claire, would you just go out and ask them to be quiet in the hallway? We can't close the doors because a public meeting is supposed to keep the doors open.
This is the budget portion now?
Yes, yes, sir.
No,
No, this is,
budget, cap bank.
it's a cap bank.
No, this
Okay, I apologize.
See no one coming forward? Motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2022:21 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
yes.
Floor is closed.
Whereas the above ordinance was read in title on second reading and hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading, and that a notice of final passage of said ordinance be published in the newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution above for ordinance 2022:21 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call. Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Do this next one for me, I forgot to sign it.
Yeah, all of them.
Okay, at this time,
Public hearing, the budget.
entertain a motion to open up the public hearing on the budget.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Floor is open for public hearing on the budget.
My name is Bernie Clark, and I was here last meeting. I guess I still need to sign in. You've presented a new, you've got a budget out here. I assume it's the same one that's been out there for weeks now, or did you make changes to it?
Same budget.
Okay. So at the last meeting, I brought up the fact that the municipal budget's going up by 14.3%, and that includes taking $1,500,000 from the sewer utility fund, which shocked me when I saw it, and I thought people weren't going to do it. Now that I've heard that there's going to be a lot more sewer costs coming up because of what the mayor announced at the beginning of the meeting, I am even more shocked that you're taking $1,500,000 out of that fund. At the last meeting, the mayor and I disagreed on certain items. You invited me to come to your office. I did call your office. I left a message. Nobody ever got back to me, but I'm back here now. Another thing that occurred since the last meeting is that all the financial information temporarily disappeared from the town's website right after that meeting. Maybe it was your IT people decided to do it or whatever. It seemed a little coincidental to me. Eventually, some of that information did reappear around last Thursday. However, there is no financial information going back prior to 2018. And there's not that much information on there compared to what there used to be. Things like disbursements were even shown. There is limited financial information from 1918 through 21 in the 2022 budget, and that's it. So my observation, once I could find the budget online again and dig into it some more, is that there was very little decrease in spending on many line items, even though there was supposedly millions of dollars of waste under the prior administration. I looked through it pretty carefully, and I will say there was one area where I did find a significant increase in the 2022 budget compared to prior year expenses. That was in the legal fee line. And I did an analysis of this because that's how I always work. The current budget calls for $817,000 for legal fees. The actual legal fees in 2021 were approximately $578,000. I got that from the budget. If I take the last 4 years of actual legal expenses, they average out to $467,000 a year. I will add that the Creefy lawsuit that I think everybody on this panel is fully aware of settled in December of 2021. That was a major legal expense to the town over the years. With that gone, I would anticipate that maybe the legal fees would actually go down, at the worst, stay flat. And yet you've got them going up to $817,000. I know you changed law firms, you went to a different law firm or firms that you're comfortable with. However, they're gonna now charge us a lot more money, 40% more than what we paid last year. Something seems wrong there. And I have a schedule here if anybody wants to look at it, but do you have any comments on that?
I do. With regards to the legal fees, and I'll ask the CFO if I'm wrong, what happened was last year, the legal fees came over budget by approximately, I think, was it $200,000? So it came over budget in 2021, so that money has to be raised in 2022.
That's not what the budget says.
Oh. Well, that's what happened.
Jamie, we're gonna stick to the format.
All right, I agree.
Yeah, ask your questions, and then you will answer them. As we're not gonna have a back and forth.
Okay. Well, I asked that question and the answer.
Is that your last,
Answer, but-
is that your last
Council
question?
President's correct. We'll
Okay.
wait until.
Is that your last question?
I have one other question if you have
Okay,
the time.
ask all your questions.
One other expense that I can't fathom is why for the town council, there's about $27,000 worth of health insurance fees shown. Because you guys are all part-timers, so what's that about? And I'm not saying $27,000 is gonna settle all the budget issues, but, you know, that could buy a new vehicle. Any thoughts on that?
You're saying with part-timers? Oh,
Well, that's what the budget says, 5 part-time people that are elected. Well, I assume that's the town council, is that, you want to see the line?
No, I'm disagreeing with you. I'm just, from what I understand, town council doesn't get any.
town council gets no benefits.
Okay, well then, I would suggest that you look at the user-friendly budget that you guys sent out. I haven't had a copy of it here.
No. All right. I know.
Does anybody want to look at this?
We could look at it, you could just scan it to the clerk and they can make us a copy.
So, I think you need to find some better solutions here, and rating the water utility, the sewer utility with all the issues you just outlined just got a lot worse. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Council. John Von Aiken here, 43 Elliott Road. Going through the budget as I do most years, this is a hard job. You guys go through a lot of work here, and I don't want to throw you under the fence or anything like that. Just a few comments that I've seen that maybe take a different direction on certain things. So specifically, I'm looking at the capital improvements section, spending 3.1 million this year on the capital improvements. It's certainly a good direction, but it seems like we got about 122 million of identified needs that we need to satisfy. That's almost 2 years worth of our regular spending budget that we have to figure out how to close the gap on. And I'd love to see more push in that direction. The budget itself identifies that we need more than 18 million a year in order to satisfy those. And I'm sure some of that's debt, some of that's additional tax increases. I hope not more tax increases, but we all have to do what we have to do, right? So I'm looking at those capital improvements and how can we move this forward in order to get the town the improvements they need, between the galvanized pipe that were just brought up, the sewer expenses that were brought up. It seems like we have to find a way to get this done. Now, with that, the 1.5 million that's being taken from the sewer, it seems like that's the money that's supposed to be used for these types of capital projects. The money that's been taken from the water over the years, I think we've got $10 million that we owe to the water fund, $10 million that we owe to the sewer fund, a little less than $1 million that we owe to the golf fund. These are things that we keep taking money from these other funds, and we're going to run out of money to pay for the capital improvements that are so needed here. So I'd like to make sure that we're focusing those monies on the areas where they're needed for the long term of the town's health. Some areas that I looked at where we might be able to get the money from instead, because 1.5 million is difficult to come up with, but I found at least $1 million between 3 areas of the budget that seem to have taken a rather large increase over the previous year. That would be, as was mentioned earlier, the legal fees, which increased by 217,000. The Parks and Recreation jumped up almost 700,000, a 21% increase. And the streets and road maintenance jumped up about $300,000 as well. All total, that's $1 million for increases that were well in excess of 15% over previous year. So maybe there's an opportunity to take some money from those, and rather than utilizing the funds for water, sewer, and golf. So those are my thoughts, and I'm open to any comments that you have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you, Michael.
Nick Holmiak, Lake Hiawatha. I'm confused about the Knoll. Mayor Barbario, in the last council meeting, he said that the budget included, I believe, Mayor, you said 1.5 million from the Knoll golf utility.
I didn't say that. I don't remember saying that.
Well, what did you say about the Knoll golf? You did say, you did use the Knoll as a component.
Nick, excuse me.
All right.
What we're doing is ask all your questions,
All right.
and we will answer them.
All right, the way I understand it, whatever I heard, the Knoll doesn't contribute anything to the benefit of the taxpayers of Parsippany. But if anything, I would think Knoll detracts, because you'll see parks and forestry people over there, you see water and sewer people over there. I'd like to, who paid for the new water treatment or sewer system that's coming out over there on Knoll Drive? Was that the Parsippany taxpayers, or did the Knoll utility pay for that? You know, the new...
At the end of your questions, we'll answer them.
Okay. The other thing is, I heard the word tax rateable again. I have to say, hopefully there'll be no new land development, if there is any land development left, new land in Parsippany. But when you look around this town, this overdeveloped community we have, what good has the rateable chase done Parsippany? Especially the taxpayers. So I also heard we're going to hire more police. So if we're going to hire more police, then the money, whatever benefit, if anything, we get from a tax rateable, is gonna go to the police department. But I think that you should reconsider that. If you want to have a police, thing, get yourself some more sanitation people and start people who don't obey the rules, get them to comply instead of leaving them silly orange stickers you have. And if not, you start collecting fines for people who disrespect the community and the environment, but not having simple disciplines in their waste management. So the whole thing too, when you said the police stop crime, what stops crime is economic equity and justice, not the police. The police lock people up after the lid of the garbage can comes off because the system is unfair to certain people and overly fair to other people. So police defend property and whatever system the politicians want to develop. So if you are going to hire more police, I just hope you don't overdo it and consider, what type of police, what are they really going to do other than get a job and benefits that we're going to have to pay for in the long run?
They're going to protect our township. That's what they're going to do. Okay, Nick? Come on.
They are protecting the township, but let's not overdo it. Really, I mean,
We have
just,
80-some-odd police.
I'm just saying, I just think, it just, can go too far. But when you say police prevent crime, to me, that was, they don't prevent crime.
Nick, you have 30 seconds.
All right.
Nick, we'll answer some of your questions now.
All right, I'm gonna sit down.
Okay. Regarding the Knoll Country Club, right? The Knoll Country Club is run as a utility. Revenue has to equal expense. It's no burden to the taxpayers. It produces its own revenue up there. And they pay their own water and their own sewer and all of their maintenance. It's all, run as a utility. Not a burden to the taxpayers.
What part did they play in the budget then that Mayor Barbario mentioned in Knoll? I heard it last time I was here. I'm almost positive, I wrote it down, $1.5 million. In the budget.
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. Anyone else want to respond?
So, Nick, if the mayor said that, he probably said that by accident. We took 1.5 out of the sewer. There is no 1.5 coming out of the Knoll.
Right.
Which want to give Kevin Brancato a heart attack. Okay, so there is no Knoll money. Yeah, so, that would be the short answer for that.
Loretta?
No comment.
Anyone else to comment? Jamie?
Well, I'll wait for, got one more.
Hi, my name's Jean Embler. I live in Mount Tabor. I just have one comment about the crime rate in Parsippany. 2017 to 2020, it was reported to the state that the crime in this county went down 35%. So hiring more police officers seems as though it is inadequate and should not be done. The other question I have is the 14%. Is that over 4 years, or is that going to be something that's going to smack all the taxpayers in the face at one time?
I'll explain that when the public session's over.
Those are the two questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Now, I thought we were going to answer after each speaker.
Huh? I got after, well, no.
So you can answer.
Well, I have a statement here I wanted to read into the
okay.
record. And it will answer all these questions with regards to the 14.63%. It'll answer the questions to the 3.3%. It'll answer the questions to the 1.5 that was withdrawn from the sewer utility. All those questions will be were answered because I'm going off the press release that the Democrats put in the tap into Parsippany. So I'll be reading my statement with regards to that.
Okay.
Steve Alberts, McNeil Drive, Parsippany, been a resident here for 41 years. I love the town. I love Noel playing now. Wish it was better. But I just want to ask, I guess the 14%, I haven't really studied the budget, just did some reading on it, and I understand, we live in inflationary times, coming out of COVID, there's a lot of issues. What are we planning going forward, so we're not here again this year with smack in the face of 14%? Are there any procedures or changes being contemplated over the next upcoming year or two, so we get more in line with other municipalities? I mean, Parsippany has a lot of ratables. Look around. I would think we'd be on the lower side of our brethren than on the higher side, if we are on the higher side. But what are we doing going forward?
Well, if he's done speaking, that's not part of my, I'll answer that question with regards to the 14.60%. Your taxes aren't going up that much. I mean, it's misleading when the Parsippany Democrat Committee puts a press release out and basically calls me a liar, which I said when I ran again that no one's going to call me a liar, and I'm going to respond to that tonight. But with regards to the 14.63%, one of the things that happened in 2020 was that the mayor got special dispensation from the state of New Jersey. Basically what that means is they got to use the rule of average on your revenues. But also that means that when you get special dispensation, that the mayor didn't have to follow the local finance laws. In fact, they were ignored during that time. So when you use the law of average, what happens is the revenues were put in the budget anticipated higher, but they didn't come in that high. They came in lower. So that's why one of the reasons why we were $8.5 million in the hole, because the revenues weren't there. There was a shortfall. Going into 2022, I'm not kicking the can down the road going forward. I'm just not going to do it, and that's what happened here. Okay? With regards to the police department and the crimes, went down 35%. I spoke to the chief about this with regards to crime going down. You got to remember, during the period of COVID, nobody was really out. No one was being arrested. Everyone was in the house. So that part of that number is in there. So, but if the chief wants to speak on that tonight, he can. But your taxes aren't going up 14.6%. Basically what that is it's a tax levy. And I tried to explain this the last meeting. And I'm going to read that into the record later. The tax levy is the amount of money needed for the budget, but it's not the tax rate. The tax rate's completely different. And I explained this. This will be my third time tonight explaining it. It'll be 3.3%. So the average house is set at $312,397. The average tax will increase by $319. So basically, if we're paying $10,000 a year this year, you times up by 3.3%, your tax will go up $230. Simple math. And I'm not a CPA, but I know how to read these budgets. I know how to read them. And I do know this, that's part of the politics of it. I get it. But tonight, when I get my portion, I'm going to explain everything, especially that 1.5 million with regards to the sewer. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, council. My name is Steve Kamenetsky. I've lived in the town since 1972, in the same house since 1976. And in those 46 years I've lived in town, I live off South Bedwick Road on Schuyler Street. Never known of one crime. Never. No break-ins, burglaries, attempted robberies, nothing. In the last 10 days, my neighborhood has had 3 attempted robberies and burglaries, car thefts, etc. So when people talk about defunding the police, you correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, I believe our township used to have about 110 police in total, or somewhere around that
Yeah,
number.
at one time, they're 106 to 110.
Okay, so now we're down to 80-something?
We're down to 90, but deployable 81.
I would like to see police right around our neighborhoods and protect us.
And I agree with you.
I read in the Star Ledger that a lot of these crimes are being committed by youngsters who know they can't be penalized because of their age. They're being paid to steal cars. People are stupid, they leave fobs in their cars, leave the cars out, the ignition on, or whatever. So don't tell me defund the police or reduce the police. That's number one. Number two, I'm a big advocate of libraries, but it seems to me we have an excellent library, the main library. We also have an excellent county library, which I use a lot because that's much more extensive than the town library, although I think the town library. So if we're going to spend money, I would like to see a municipal pool built. We are surrounded by towns that have their own municipal pools. I mean, Hanover, Florham Park, you name it. And I think it's terrible. I mean, kids need a pool to swim in. Families need a pool. And I also think pickleball is very popular right now. I don't know of any pickleball courts. And it's the most popular sport for senior citizens. So if we're going to spend some money, I'd rather see it done on recreational facilities rather than tearing out a library or fixing up the library or whatever. And it's really shocking to me we don't have a municipal pool, Mayor.
We used to.
Well, maybe, like I said, we used to belong to Lake Hiawatha Pool, but the town never owned it, to my knowledge.
No, we don't own that one.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, just so you know, in the last 12 months, or even a little bit longer than that, crime is definitely up. Okay? Exactly what the mayor said. Because of COVID, people weren't out, people weren't doing anything. Why is it up? Because you have bail reform, you have people getting out that should still be in jail, things like that. You are 100% correct in what you said about how they're employing juveniles to steal vehicles and stuff like that. That's exactly what's going on. And with our police department has been going down and down and down. And those salaries are in the budget. They've been in the budget. It's not like we're adding to it. We used to have 106. We were up to 106. We're down a tremendous amount. And in my opinion, that is what is also contributed. If we had that many more officers out there, just think of how much more would be prevented, correct? So, just want to let you know.
I'd just like to make one comment regarding the libraries. Yeah, we do have a big, beautiful library on Halsey Road. But Lake Hiawatha is the most densely populated area in our township. No kids from Lake Hiawatha could ride their bicycles to the library on Halsey Road. This is a local library. It serves a densely portion of our community. And I would like to see some version of a library there to serve the kids in that portion of our town that they can get to without mommy and daddy driving them.
Well, can't they access the main library online?
Yes.
That's an option, but it's not the same.
Nancy Chaffo, 5 Glenbrook Drive. I live here for over 23 years now. We have over 50,000 residents. I can't get from where I live in Parsippany, very close to the police station, and up on Route 10 in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on the traffic. I'm grateful that you're hiring more police officers. I see what's going around in towns like Montville, where people are being carjacked in their driveways. People accidentally leave their cars open, and people are going into the garages and get into the residence. It's not safe anywhere. And, you have to be cautious of your house, and you have to remember to lock your doors and be careful. But we need police officers. And with 50,000 people and the amount of people that the Soriano administration are bringing into this town with the developments that have happened over the last 4 years and the proposals and all the developments, how many more people are we going to have in this town that need policing and fire departments and EMS? I just know that if I call the police department and they can't get down to my street within 15 minutes when I need them, they're never going to get to any other section of Parsippany because I'm that close to the police station. So I'm grateful for your hiring. If my tax dollars have to be spent to hire more police officers to keep this town safe for our children and our residents, that's the best dollars you can spend. Thank you.
Thank you. For anybody's information, the state recommendation for the number of police officers for a town of this size is 113 police officers. We never got to that number. Chief?
Good evening, everyone. Rich Pantina, I'm Acting Chief of Police Parsippany. I've been a police officer in Parsippany for 33 years now. Everybody that makes a comment here was correct. You're all correct in some way. But I will tell you right now, we are at dangerous levels with our policing. We're as low as we've been as long as I've been here. So right now, like the mayor stated, we're at 90 officers, and we are at 81 deployable officers. Within the next year and a half, we stand
Chief,
to lose.
you're gonna have to speak into the microphone so it can be
We stand to
recorded.
lose probably another 20 officers. So we're not asking for much. We're not asking to add 30 people right now. But I'll tell you, the way the mayor did it in his last administration was the proper way to do it. If people leave, we replace them. Those are already budgetary items. If we have the luxury to add new people, that would be new hires. And that would be great, but crime is up. COVID did have an effect on us. We were working less, believe it or not. We were doing more with less. We had officers staggered, working long hours. That did affect the way the crimes were reported. But we are definitely up now. Car thefts are up. It's throughout the state. You can look at any news item throughout the state, car thefts are up. And Councilman Karifi, you're correct. You're in our business. You know what we're talking about. The bail reform has an effect on it. People walking out of the police station before the paperwork is basically done is not something that is good for this township. Now we don't have control over that. The state of New Jersey has control over that, and the way the rules are changing, it's more lenient towards the criminal. We send out flyers all the time, we send out messages, lock your cars, and we're not blaming the public for getting their cars broken into. But these are all issues that we're dealing with now. We can't go much lower. I know, Fred, we've had these discussions. I've spoken to most of you on the council. We cannot go lower than where we are now, because it will catch up quick, and we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I have numbers here. People talk about defunding the police. I'm not blaming anybody from a past administration, but for the past 4 years, we hired 6 people. And that's not enough. We've lost many more than that. So the services that you get as a township are affected by how many people we have. Right now, we have 2 people in the traffic division. That was one of our bigger divisions. We have 4 detectives. They're getting inundated. Just to hire people, we need 4 detectives to do backgrounds. So I'm not begging you, I'm just telling you the same story I've been telling you for the last 4 or 5 years. We need to hire more people. Okay? When people walk out the door, we need to replace them. We have a fantastic police department. Those men and women across the street do a lot with less. And we need to add more, because quite honestly, they're starting to get burnt out a little bit. Okay? So whatever you can do, I'm not blaming anyone in the public for making their comments. Some of the stuff they say, yeah, it is a society issue that crime goes up, and people do have problems, and inequities in economics. That all adds to everything. But we're law enforcement. We need to deal with the problem when it happens. Okay? We don't create the laws, we just go by the script. And we need more people. So, if you have any other questions, I'll answer them.
Chief, one thing you should point out is, 90 police officers sound like a lot, but they're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 3 shifts and then some. So it's really not a lot. And then you have the detectives.
Right.
So, and then you have the SROs.
Right. So currently we have 4 SROs, which we have an agreement with
the school board.
With the school board. So, Frank, you know about that. I mean, they're fantastic. They start at the beginning, right? So they're dealing with the kids in the schools. They get to a lot of problems before they do become crimes or issues. We have, like I said, we had the traffic division. We used to have 6 or 7 guys in there with a supervisor. Right now we have 2 officers in there. Someone just mentioned traffic before, getting from the police station to Powder Mill, right? We have a lot of highways in this town, a lot of roadways. Our enforcement's down. You could ask the court system. The summonses are down. Finances coming into the court are down. because we just don't have the ability to be on details that are specific for that right now. We're handling call to call, and that's pretty much where our focus is right now. I have the sheets in 2017, we're at 113. And like we said, now we're at 81. Or we were at 104 and 103 in 2017, and now we're at 81 deployable. It just can't keep going in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
If I could make a comment with regards to the chief. My first week in office, the PBA president, George Sampides, and the chief came to see me with regards to the low manpower. That's how, and I understood. Because when I was the mayor the first 8 years, we had a policy. When somebody retired, and you know, the council knows, we hired right away. Because it was in the budget, and we didn't want to deplete it, because when I got in 2010, we were down to 87 police officers, and it was unacceptable. So when I got back in 2022, it's unacceptable, and we're going to beef it up. We have no choice.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is George Sampides. I'm the SOA president for the Parsippany Police Department, and prior to that, I was the PBA president. I've been doing this for almost 12 years. I hate when politics has to come into the police, but hearing some of I agree with many of the residents' concerns. I said, but I'm here to back my men and women that I work with. Just give you a backstory. I don't care what administration is in here, where I worked with Democrats, I worked with Republicans. I gotta raise this because it's a little low.
Take it out.
You can take it out.
Take it out. Whatever, I'll hold it. That's better. 2017, 18, prior to that, 14 through 17. Mayor Barbera's administration hired 25 officers. We had 0 that retired. The last 4 years, I'm not playing politics, whatever, I understand budgetary. You hired 6, 11 retired. What is that going to bring us to? Some of these things that you guys are speaking about as far as crime's up. I can tell you, I did narcotics for 6 years with the county. I came back, I used to run an SCU unit, hitting all the hotels. Once COVID got done and budgetary, my unit collapsed. And the chief knows very well, is very active. I work hard and I care about this town. I might not live here, but I do care. Anybody who knows me knows what I'm about. But as far as our numbers dipping, there's a reason. You have to replace what you have. We're going to be coming down with retirements. There's plenty we have 5 or 6 people who have retirement papers in that are going to leave. And I understand you're not going to get, nobody's asking for what they have, but I have to back my men and women here. We work hard. And I know what they do. And as for the residents, yes, I understand these juveniles are doing that. But you know how many we've locked up in the last month? I know, because I've charged them. You know what happens with the bail reform? They walk on the street and they connect the next crime. It's very frustrating on our part. But this is something now that legislation is starting to look at as far as the juveniles so they can be put away for the 60 or 90 days. So we don't have the means to keep, we can sit out there, walk, drive around. This is happening up and down the state. It's not a local issue here, I can tell you that. I said, we could drive, there's plenty of you don't hear a lot of it because it's not advertised. I know we have a handful of individuals we have arrested within the last month. Juveniles. So we are out there being productive. The men and women here that work here. I'm behind the scenes, but I'm out there with them, and I will back them. But when we don't have the means to do what we want to do, our specialized units, what we had with the hotels, let me tell you, the hotels are a shit show here, guys, okay? How do you want us to go do it? I'm in the back doing juveniles, and supposed to do SCU, which got defunct because of budgetary reasons. It's okay, but that unit was very good. I had 3 guys and myself, and we would do stings every 2 weeks. And it's all documented. So, not blaming anybody, but you have to replace when people leave and think for the future. That was not done. And I don't know if it was the last chiefs, which should have been looking what was happening, because that's not my job. But as a union, when people start calling out my members, no, that is in the last administration to think for the future. And now you have a new administration here, and you can't blame the mayor for what he has been given. I don't care whether it's a D or an R. So, everybody's got to take that. And I don't like to use the defunct the police. Come on. I've been doing this too long. That's not right for us. And we don't like to be put in the middle of politics.
Nobody said defund the police. Nobody said defund the police. Nobody said don't overdo it.
All
That
right.
word defund the police.
George, don't go
Okay.
back. George, don't go back.
Okay, we'll take that, but as far as our manpower, we're at a dire low as far as what we have for this size. And as far as the building, I agree with you. Yeah, there should be, maybe start paying these rent, people want to build, let them start paying for cops. But all I ask is here, as the union guy, and my counterpart back there, John Keeling, you know, we're gonna stick up for our men and women, and we work hard for the residents here, and I know what they do in and day out. Like the chief said, I just asked, listen, we're not looking, we just want to maintain what we have here to give better services for the town.
Okay, thank you.
George.
Anyone else wish to speak?
My name is Bob Venezia. I live at 102 Brooklawn Drive. The transfer of surpluses from water and sewer utilities has been a hot-button issue in this town for at least 4 or 5 years. The transfer started in 2011, and over $9 million was transferred during this administration's prior terms. The transfers continued under Mayor Soriano, but years of transfers drained the utility surpluses, necessitating a 39% utility rate increase. Because of that 39% rate increase, the utility transfers stopped in 2021. Now, in 2022, utility surplus transfers have started up again. This practice ended badly once before, and I can't believe we're going to make the same mistake again. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing no one come forward, entertain a motion to close.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Resolutions, R 2022-125, resolution to amend introduced budget. Motion to adopt the resolution made by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution R 2022-122, authorize the 2022 municipal budget to be read by title only. Motion to adopt the resolution above by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Resolution 2022-123, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany, adoption of the 2022 budget. Motion to adopt the resolution above by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
No.
Mr. Neglia?
Are we up to me?
No, Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
And Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance for introduction?
Ordinance 2022:22, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, repealing Chapter 12 Contracts, Article 1, prohibitions on contract awards of the Township Code and adopting New Jersey pay-to-play law. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, passed on first reading, and at the meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on August 16, 2022, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at the meeting to be held on September 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or soon thereafter the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning the said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2022:23, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 91 Animals, Section 91-2, Licensing of Dogs of the Township Code. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills held on August 16, 2022, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on September 20th, 2022 at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Second reading and public hearing, ordinance 2022:20, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 4, Article 7, Administration of Government, Department of Public Works, and Chapter A44-47, Fees, Compilation Omnibus Drivers of the Department of Public Works of the Code of Parsippany Troy Hills. The notice for ordinance 2022:20 was published in the Daily Record, the official newspaper of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills, on July 25th, 2022, and introduced at the July 19th, 2022 regular meeting. Motion to accept ordinance 2022-20 be heard in their second and final reading by title only by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion to open public hearing for ordinance 2022-20 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is open on this ordinance only. Seeing no one?
Motion to close the public hearing for ordinance 2022-20 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
And Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Whereas the above ordinance is read in title on second reading and a hearing held thereon, now therefore be it resolved that said ordinance be passed on final reading and that notice of the final passage of said ordinance be published in a newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the resolution above for ordinance 2022-20 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Mr. Karifi. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Non-consent agenda resolutions R 2022-124, authorizing the planning board of the Township of Parsippany Troy Hills to conduct a preliminary investigation of certain property within the township for potential redevelopment. Motion to approve the resolution above for ordinance 2022:19 by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. Neglia. Roll call. Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Consent agenda, be it resolved, all items listed with an asterisk are routine and non-controversial by the Township Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Karifi, seconded by Mr. Musella. Roll call. Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Approval of payroll and bills list. CFO Juan Uribe recommends authorization for payment. Authorized payment of the August 9th, 2022 regular and miscellaneous payroll, estimated at $1.65 million. Payment of bills from voucher list of August 15th, 2022 through August 17th, 2022 is $3,167,554.21. Motion to approve the authorization for payment above, made by myself.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Musella, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. Grignani.
Yes.
Mr. Musella.
Yes.
Mr. Neglia.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And the ultimate motion?
I would,
No, not yet.
yeah, you went so quick.
Okay.
I was,
Mayor.
I wanted to respond to some of,
Okay, Mayor, go ahead.
as I told you, I wanted to respond. I think it's important to the Parsippany Democrat Committee putting a press release out that they actually paid for, from what I understand. So, and called me a liar with regards to, the two meetings that I had previously. And like I said, no one's gonna call me a liar. I don't care what party you're from. Doesn't really matter to me. With that being said, I'm just gonna read what they said. They said, when Parsippany's budget was introduced 2 weeks ago, Mayor Barbera claimed that his administration was only raising property taxes by 3.3%. However, the mayor's own budget documents indicate an increase more than quadruple that size, a 14.3% increase in your property taxes. I'm gonna read what I read into the record on July 21st, when I introduced the budget. And also, I discussed it at the meeting of August 2nd. We are proposing, I'm going to say it again, we are proposing a 3.3% tax increase in municipal portion of the budget. I didn't say school portion, I said municipal. That means if you own a home, I'm sure you heard this before, valued at $312,397, the municipal portion of your tax bill will go up $319, and that is $26.58 a month increase. This is the point that's important, the 14.63%. Then I said the tax levy, meaning the amount of money needed to fund our government, is also increasing 14.63%. And then I stated that your taxes aren't going up that much. That's just the amount of difference between last year's budget and this year's budget. Okay, then we're gonna get to, it also bears to mention, and Mr. Venezia brought it up today, to mention that Mayor Barbera has reinstated his practice of borrowing from our sewer utility fees to balance the budget and all the 1.5 million, which everybody heard. I read this into the statement. Within 4 short years, Mayor Sariano destroyed Parsippany's finances. He squandered all the surpluses in our utilities as well as our current fund. Now, Mr. Venezia came up, but what he failed to state was that most of those monies that I took over those was replenished. Or was replenished, because if it wasn't replenished, I came in here in 2010 with $10 million in total surpluses throughout the current fund, sewer utility, the water utility, and the golf utility, and I left here total between all those utilities and the current fund, $3 million.
Mayor, another way to say that, by the way, is each of those utilities has a fund balance.
Right.
You never took more out of the fund balance than that which could be replaced the following year.
Well,
That's what was not done the last 4 years.
And you're correct, thank you. Now I'm gonna get to 2020. And in 2020, he anticipated a significant amount of water and sewer surplus funds as revenue in the current fund, and the apparent avoidance of tax increases, to some extent, which harmed the health of all the utilities. The reason surplus wasn't used last year, Bob, was because there was none. There was none left. So in all reality, Mayor Serrano depleted it not in 4 years, he depleted it in 3 years. All right, now, I gotta get to this. I gotta get to this. I didn't interrupt you when you spoke, please. Even worse, this is from the Democrats. 2.8 million or 16% of the police budget is funded through the one-time American Rescue Plan. Those funds will not be renewed next year, opening up yet another budgetary nightmare for taxpayers, which we addressed in this budget. And our auditor is here. We're not going to have that $2.7 million to worry about next year. But here's the point. What I find strange is that 2.7 million or 16% of the police budget was funded through the one-time American Rescue Plan last year. None of you guys came up to complain last year about that. Not one person complained that the American Rescue Plan money was used as revenue. But now I become the mayor, it becomes a different story. And let's talk about the police department, because a lot of that has to do with the funding of the police department. And I have to tell you something. When I came in and I saw the numbers, I was literally disgusted. Because it took me a long time to replenish it, to get it back up to where it was. And all you had to do, all that had to be done over the last 4 years, is that when somebody retired, you hired immediately. That's what we had in place, and we never got any lower than 103 police officers. When I came in 2010, we were at 87 police officers. We bumped it up to 106. But when I left, that policy went right out the door. And I do blame the former chief for that. He's supposed to defend, he's supposed to stand up for his police department, which he did not do. And in closing, what I'm about to read into the record does not encompass all Democrats. It's the ones who continue to lie to our residents and lie about what I said and what I didn't say. I have many good Democrat friends, and they still live in town, and one happens to be my best man at my wedding. I saw this quote, and there was nothing that could be more fitting to after what I saw in the tavern in Parsippany. An individual who lies to themselves, and I mean the Parsippany Democrat Committee, and believe their own lies, become unable to recognize the truth, either in themselves or anyone else, and ends up losing respect for themselves and others. When they have no respect for anyone, they can no longer reason and be respected in order to divert themselves. Having no trust in themselves and others, they yield to their impulses and indulge in the lowest form of deception. And it all comes from lying to others and themselves. I have no problem with political discourse. I have no issue with that. I have no issue with any Democrat or Republican disagreeing with me, because we can agree to disagree. That's a fact. We can do that. But to call me a liar, you're not going to get away with it ever. Nobody will ever get away with calling me a liar, because my last name belongs to my father and to my grandfather. I won't call you a liar publicly, but if you want to call me a liar, I'm going to call you out on the carpet. That's a fact, and that's going to be that way for this next term. And if I get another one, God bless. You'll probably be happy if I don't, but if I don't, life still goes on. But I had a tough budget here that I came in, and I knew that when I was running. And in fact, I wasn't going to run for mayor, because I knew how bad this budget was. That I was going to be coming over here, because you continue to kick the can down the road, eventually someone's going to have to dig their heels in and say, enough is enough. And this was the mayor you got. Enough is enough. I wasn't kicking the can down the road. We talked about cancel appropriations. Well, we cancel appropriations, guess what? 10 times worse next year. So we're not canceling appropriations. We had to make some tough decisions. And you know what? This was a tough budget. But you got the right person in office. That's all I can tell you. But no one, and I mean this, nobody is going to call me a liar. It's not going to happen. With that, Council President, thank you for giving me the time. And one more thing, with regards to, and I'll let Juan, our CFO, explain this, with regards to Mr. Clarkin's response with the legal fees. And from what I understand, the reason why the legal fees are up $200,000 is because last year, the legal fees came over $200,000, so we have to raise that money in this year's budget. So I'll let Juan take it over from there.
If you're addressing me on that, Mayor, I respectfully disagree. I'd be happy to respond at some point.
No back and forth. Thank you.
All right, then you have to answer it then. Thank you, Council President.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Council President, can I say a word?
Sure.
Thank you very much. When myself, Mayor Barbario, and Councilman Masella ran for public office, we knew this year's budget was going to be an uphill battle. We all knew it was going to be a challenge. This was despite Mayor Barbario leaving Mayor Soriano $23 million in surplus and a fiscally sound budget. Mayor Soriano mismanaged the budget every year in office and put the town in the deficit we are in today. Some examples: he hired many people to newly created positions. He installed a surveillance camera system to watch over everyone that worked for the town. Why in God's name would you spend so much money to do this? What motivates a leader to want to watch over all his employees and make them feel so uncomfortable? To me, that's foolish spending, money that can be put elsewhere. Hire new police officers, anywhere, but that's foolish spending. Mayor Soriano also put in an eye scan and spent a ton of money for everyone in town hall to sign in. An eye scan. Are we the Pentagon? Are we looking over national secrets? Again, foolish spending. Mayor Soriano went on further and then hired someone to a title that never existed for his office at $77,000 a year. Again, foolish spending, not needed. Soriano also approved a major construction project without a water study being done. That's cost the taxpayers more. Foolish spending. Then, Soriano put a hiring freeze on the police. Why? Public safety should be the first priority. Because of Soriano's actions, he depleted the police department to a very low, dangerous numbers. We now have to build that back up for the safety of the community. When an officer retires, as Mayor Barbario said, one should have been hired. That was not done. Mayor Soriano also tried to eliminate the SRO agreement we have with the Board of Ed. I know that. I was the Board of Ed president. He wasn't thinking about children's safety at all, but trying to replenish the funding he mismanaged. Foolish spending. In my opinion, Soriano was inexperienced and knew nothing about running a town like Mayor Barbario does, and he certainly was not concerned about the town, its people, and the way Mayor Barbario is. Within 4 short years, Mayor Soriano destroyed Parsippany's finances. He squandered all the surplus in our utilities as well as our current fund. One could only imagine what would have happened if he was in office any longer. We are all left with the task of cleaning up the financial mess that Mayor Soriano left us. This council, this mayor, we're all responsible for it now. Today is the start of cleaning up this mess. Moving forward, you won't hear this administration or this council blame the past mayor for the budget like the former mayor did all 4 years in office. That is a cop-out and not taking accountability for what you're responsible for. This council and mayor will take responsibility. This budget starts today and puts us at ground zero, and moving forward, we own it. Thank you.
Can the public interject anything or not?
No, the
No.
public hearing's over.
I didn't think so.
Well,
You know, no one wants to raise taxes. No one wants to do it. But when you're left in the situation that we were left in by the former mayor, okay? You know, Bill, you had asked me, how did this happen? Okay, during COVID, you're bringing in $100. You spend $100, but now all of a sudden, you're bringing in $0, but you continue to spend $100 or more. What happens to your savings? You have to keep dipping into your savings, and you have to keep taking it and taking it. The mayor stated in his previous term, with that money that was taken out of the surpluses, that was replenished. Every year it was replenished. It even built up even more during that time. You asked me about certain employees. I told you how we had employees. One of them was Mr. Clarkin's son, was brought in without an iota of experience at top pay. Replaced a woman who had a lot of experience, okay? You have salary ranges. If you have a salary range of 40 to 80,000, you bring a new employee in And he's not the only one. There were a lot of these employees. You bring a new employee in, you bring them in at the starting pay or very close to it. You don't bring people in at top pay. And that money wasn't budgeted. So you're going to bring in, you budget for 40, but now you're going to bring somebody in at close to $80,000? And you repeatedly do that. That's a lot of money over time. So that's what did this. That's what did this. And now we're trying to dig out of the hole. You can't spend, when you're not bringing money in, you can't just keep spending it like you have it. It's like people running up credit card bills. You're just going to tap out all your credit card bills, and what happens? You're in a lot of trouble, and that's where we're at now. We're getting us out of that. We're getting us out of that hole right now. So that's what we're doing. You know, sir, you had asked, how did this happen? That's what happened. We just were not bringing in the revenue that was budgeted, a lot of it because of COVID. But when you knew that, we shouldn't have been spending. The former mayor should have been spending at the same rate and even higher than what we thought we were going to bring in. And we weren't bringing in anywhere near that amount of money. And that's how this happened. So now we're getting us out of this hole.
Everybody done? Okay, the ultimate motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
A motion made by Mr. Neglia, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Mr. Musella?
Yes.
Mr. Neglia? Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Have a good night, everyone. We're adjourned.
Yes.
Fred, very quiet.
I don't know what this is.
I don't know what this is either.